Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the October 24th meeting of the TAC to order. Seems like we have a quorum. At this point, we'd like to, is there any modifications to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, no modifications to the agenda. Thank you.
Second. I have a motion second to approve the agenda as submitted. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, thanks. Have the minutes from September 26th. If there's no comments on them, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
A motion second to approve the September 26 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, thank you. Director's report, Chad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members of Technical Advisory Committee. Today we have one action item on 2023 UPWP, one discussion item on adding the future MTP committees, and staff updates on data and reports. Staff would report to you a couple of things on the timeline for the WAMPO projects. In your packets, the MTP development is on page 6. The next fall, 2023, begins the WAMPO project, so we would like to remind you periodically. And then RFP updates, let me request Ashley Myers to provide an update on RFPs that's going on and public participation plan as well. 2 items. Thank you, Ashley.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Ashley Byers, the Transportation Planning Manager. And I was going to give a little update on the RFPs that we have going on right now. So the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, oops, sorry. I touched the computer, decided not to work. Nope. Where did it go? It should be there. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Rain has us all messed up.
Okay, good. Thank you, Alicia. Okay, sorry about that. The Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, we're going through the selection process now, and we will hopefully have a contract soon. And we are hoping to have that at the November 8th TPB meeting, which will be an online only meeting for just 15 minutes. This is the only item on the agenda. So we can get this approved, so then the consultant can start the process, so we can make sure we get the project done in time to apply for the Safe Streets for All grant in September. Then the Economic Development RFP, we are developing a cost benefit model, demographic and socioeconomic forecasting, identifying strengths and resources and regional economic indicators. And that RFP was issued on September 20th. And it will close on November 4th. We are hoping that we'll be through the whole process in time for the December 13th TPB meeting, and then we could start the process right away. For the public participation plan, it is out for public comment. This is our one plan that requires 45 days of public comment. And so it will close on November 14th, and we will bring it back to you all at the TAC meeting in November. And then we'll go to the December TPB meeting. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think the next item is travel demand model update. The consulting team is working on travel demand model update. As you all know, travel demand model is used to forecast traffic, and forecast is important for planning purposes. In areas where air quality forecasting is needed, model is usually used in areas where air quality emissions are forecasted as well. That's just one example, and there are other examples as well. So the consulting firm is now working on obtaining traffic counts, because model development needs validation and calibration based on the existing travel patterns and users using the transportation system. So they were identifying what traffic counts are available, what locations are available. They're working with KDOT. More importantly, they would like to have 2022 data for our region. So I'd like to request Alicia to, give an update, and if you have 2022 data, let Alicia know as well. Alicia.
Yes, thank you, Chad. Alicia Hunter, Senior Planner. Yeah, we are in the midst of collecting and reviewing all the data. I'm working with the consultants on that. And so if you have any data that you can share with us, especially ADT data for 2022, please send that information to me. We'll pass that along with the consultants as we continue to work on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Primarily, we were not sure whether 2022 data is available right now, whether when KDOT would have those count locations that periodically was conducted every year. And then we do not know at the moment how much cities and jurisdictions have those counts in a manner that the count program is existing. So we would like to work with you, and if you have any information, we would like to discuss with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chad. Public comment, is there anybody who would like to address the bodies in? Is there anyone on the phone that would like to address the body? Do we have any comments that have been submitted previously? Thank you very much. Move on to the new business. The first action is the 2023 PWP update. Ashley.
Thank you. The Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, is our primary budgeting document for the planning activities that we undertake in the coming fiscal year, or coming year, sorry. Each summer, we begin considering the existing activities and adding activities based on federal requirements, and have conversations with FHWA, FTA, KDOT, Wichita Transit, TAC, TPP. And we had these discussions at the July 25th TAC, the August 9th and September 13th TPP. And so then we've developed the UPWP for next year's work. And this list includes our high-level summary. If you go to page 25, it's your packet. There's even more information about each one of these and more. So we will be developing the 2050 MTP, also administering the TIP. We'll be doing several transit-related activities, including updating our coordinated public transit human services transportation plan and completing a fiscally constrained regional transit study. We will be finishing the comprehensive safety action plan and the economic development report that I mentioned earlier, and we'll be updating our intelligent transportation systems architecture, along with others. This UPWP has federal funding and then local funding, and the federal funding is in the form of comprehensive planning grant funds, or CPG funds, that are all put together and come to us through KDOT. And that requires a 20% local match. The total expenditures in the 2023 UPWP are just over $2 million. The public comment period started on September 30th and it will close on October 30th. So far, we have not received any public comments, but if we do, we will make sure to share those with TBB before we go to them for approval. So we have a couple of action options for you. Recommend approval with specific changes, or recommend denial. And our staff recommendation is recommending approval. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I had a quick question. When I looked through this, I'm sure it was in and I just didn't see it. I think is the tip fee, is that what helps contribute to on that?
Yes.
Was that table in here? Because I know, I just want to make sure we knew.
Yeah.
The fees were, because I think it was staying the same for a couple of years, but maybe adjusting at some point, right? Correct.
Chad?
Thank you, Gary, for confirming. Yes, you are correct. From next year onwards, it will be 2.4% for at least 8 years or so, 8 to 10 years. I have to look for it. Sorry, exact number I don't remember. but you're right, it's 2.4% from next year onwards.
That's fine, thanks, and I'm sure our staff knew that. I just want to clarify where we might see that information. Thank you.
I don't believe that table is in BWP, but I could go add it in there so we have it as reference.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything on the phone?
Dora? No comments.
All right, at that point, the action item, I entertain a motion to approve the 2023 revised plan as submitted.
So moved.
Second. A motion second to approve the 2023 revised plan, planning working program. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, next item, discussion item, the 2050 MTP Planning Advisory Committee, Ashley again.
Yes, thank you. So the last MTP was completed in June of 2020. So the next one needs to be completed by June of 2025. So we're starting to think about the public participation process and the plan advisory committee as well. Staff looked at the previous plans, PAC, Plan Advisory Committee, and also spoke to a few of the former members from last time's process to get some thoughts. And today we'd like to have TAC's thoughts about this. We would like to propose a two-tier structure. The first tier would be the Plan Advisory Committee, which would guide the planning process and be comprised of local and state government staff and representatives of professional organizations. And then the second tier would be a roundtable of interested residents. And these would be held in alternating months of the Plan Advisory Committee. And it would be so we could get input from the public at large and be able to educate the residents, and so they could have even more kind of educated input. And we would ask residents to kind of fill out a little application, just really giving us contact information and what they're interested in, so we can make sure we have a balanced point of views going through the discussions. So this is our draft table or Plan Advisory Committee at the moment. We, on the side here, we went through and looked at the different interests of the people that were on the committee last time and thought about some additional interests that would be helpful to include to make sure we're kind of balanced. And so we have a couple of question marks if we're not sure who could fill those spots. Will Black asked if he could be on here, and I think maybe he could fill the government policy role. So what do you think? Are there people you think we should make sure to include? Are there categories or interests of people we should make sure we add to this? What do you think?
Actually, just real quick on that second line for the city of Wichita, it would be best if it was James Wagner.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Dan Squire. Thing that kind of jumped out. Small communities aren't really represented anywhere on here. This is all Wichita, Sedgwick County, KDOT, Federal Highway. I think it would be good to get a couple of the small communities with a voice and perspective on this steering committee.
Okay. So if we added Will as government policy, then do you think maybe you for another one?
I'm happy to
Makes
do
sense.
it, or if somebody else wants to. I think somebody from the engineering technical side from one of the smaller communities would be good.
Okay, so it looks like Les would be happy to participate, and mobility manager for CTD 9. That's good. Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Actually, who would chair this and who's going to coordinate it?
Good question. So we were thinking that we would have a chair from one of these people would be the chair, and staff would help lead it and coordinate all the meetings and the coordination between Plan Advisory Committee and the roundtable and all of that.
It's just the roundtable to get community input. I'm not sure the process should go through to be able to reach out and get that. I mean, it's been my experience. It's one to say you want to get that input, and it's another to put something out and have anyone ever respond. Any thoughts on how you make that work?
That's a very good point. We would really have to do some work in order to reach people and find people that are interested in doing this. That would be on our end. And we'd actually ask for everyone to help us so we can find some people. But hopefully it would work. If it didn't, we would figure out something else. We would still have our traditional public input with surveys and open houses and going to people. But we were just thinking this might be a good second level of input. So we give it a shot.
Any other thoughts, comments, discussion? Thank you.
Sure. And so we will be bringing this back next month for approval, hopefully. Looks like we have another comment. Okay.
Matt, do you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. So you have John Maddox listed and he's out this November, retiring. So you could put me in there and I could serve as, if you want it to be specific to freight, the freight capacity, but also just as multimodal opportunities in general from the KDOT perspective, which would include ped bike, public transportation, freight and rail, and electrification.
That would be great. Thank you.
And that would be another comment to make is there any interests being covered for electrification in this next MTP? Aside from KDOT?
Yes. We have any thoughts from anybody in the room who that could be as far as electrification? I think, you said you were working a bit on electric vehicle, right?
Yeah, that was one project we had identified as a possibility for VAL funding.
Do you think you could be the air quality and EV person?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. And it looks like we have a comment from Justin Shore. I agree with Dan. SCAC represents all the cities in the county, including the small communities, which are the larger number of communities in the county. So perhaps an SCAC representation. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then Dan says he'd be willing to be the SCAC person. Would that need to be voted on at the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting?
Actually, there's one more. Our gym work in the TAC and helping us a lot in various activities we're having in December. So we may have for that cost line. Sorry, I didn't update before.
Is that the appropriate person, Jim?
I would say so at this point. I'm not sure what permit will be, but
Okay.
I will not come back in January. So
Okay, thank you. Well, congrats.
I'll check the other acting. I think we figure that out.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything else on that?
That's well, thank you. And so we'll be back next month. So if you have any thoughts between now and then, please do email me.
All right, next we have the traffic count map.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so most of you already are probably aware of what traffic counts are, but just to provide an overview for everybody, they are recorded as the average number of vehicles expected to pass a given location on any given day. Counts are important for planners and officials as they help make effective planning decisions for areas such as assessing the effectiveness of prior transportation improvements, determining transportation priorities, and for making land use and development decisions. KDOT collects traffic counts at 60,000 locations in the state of Kansas. The KDOT count locations are counted on a cycle. So each year they'll count anywhere between 8,000 to 10,000 of their locations. Over the past few years, KDOT has discontinued counts in KCK and Wichita. So additional count information for Wichita and WAMPO have been provided by Sedgwick County, the city of Wichita, and Whichway. So in consultation with the traffic count agencies, WAMPO has created a couple of conceptual AADT maps for vehicles and freights on major roadways. And so these maps will help us have better understanding of how much traffic these major roadways generate and where. And so you can see on this map, this is for the vehicle AADT, and you can see some of the highest AADT segments are on US 54 from I-235 to Edgemore Street, I-135 from Lincoln Street to North Junction, and I-135 just north of 55th Street and south of MacArthur. And so this map is for the freight volumes. You can see the highest ones here are on I-135 and I-35. So these maps are particularly helpful for WAMPO as we evaluate safety, congestion, and prioritize projects as part of the MTP, TIP, and as we go through our travel demand model. And again, just a little plug, if you have data for us, please send that to me. Thank you, and does anyone have any questions?
Sorry. Just looking at the count there on West Kellogg, Western 235, I'm guessing that the 8132 is just for that mid-continent. Somehow got applied to Kellogg volumes because I'm guessing Kellogg's over 15,000.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments? You want to phone?
There's another one here, that 196,000 down at the South Junction.
What's the comment?
That 196,000 count is at the whole South Junction down where the turnpike has come together with 35135.
Yes.
Seems all big high.
And this is Dan Squires, and I'll say that 6,275 on K15 is probably accurate for K15 south of Derby, but if you go north of Derby, you're going to be 20 or 25,000.
You good?
I'm good.
Any other thoughts, comments? Thank you very much. Demographic and social, what's happening with all these big words?
Thank you. So as you're aware, we are updating the MTP, and we're also developing the new travel demand model. And part of this update is to make sure our demographic and socioeconomic data is accurate. And so we're working on determining how to update our traffic analysis zones, or TAZs. So I will ask Alicia to talk about what we've done so far.
Okay, so socioeconomic forecasts are an essential element for MPOs. So there's several purposes that they can be used for, including understanding the forecasted population and employment trends, and then used as an input into WAMPO's travel demand model. So specifically, we're going to be focusing on population forecasts, and those are used for making informed decisions about investments in growth patterns that bring the greatest benefit to the region and increase opportunities. So historically, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Department develops population projections for the WAMPO and Sedgwick County area. WAMPO staff has been coordinating with MAPD, specifically Stephen Banks' plans to develop a report outlining assumptions and methodologies for developing population projections. And so provided in your packet is the working draft report that's going to continue to evolve as we gather more input from MAPD, TAC members, and local jurisdictions. And here's the table. We have presented this for you. It's the proposed population projections and growth rates in 5-year increments from 2025 to 2050. And on October 11th, WAMPO staff reached out to all WAMPO cities seeking comment on the proposed population projections for their specific jurisdictions. We have received about 4 comments so far requesting revisions to those projections. And so we ask that comments be received by Friday, November 4th. So staff will be sending out another email reminder to those jurisdictions, regardless of whether they have comments or not. We just want to make note that everyone has had a chance to let us know. And so the population numbers here have not been adjusted or modified since they've been last presented to TAC, as we are waiting to receive those comments before making any revisions to the numbers. So with that, I thank you, and I have questions, and we also have Stephen Biggs here to help answer any questions as well.
No questions, comments?
Yeah, this is Dan Squires. Could we maybe get Steve just to give us, just for our information, just a quick overview on how these projections were developed?
Good morning, Stephen Banks, Metropolitan Area Planning Department, Advanced Plans Division. Basically, these numbers were developed using a previous control total that we had developed with the original comprehensive plan. We did a bunch of analysis looking at the projections in that plan, realizing that forecast was way too aggressive. So the question was, what do we go to in terms of a more practical growth rate for these numbers, and where does that put us, out into the future? We wouldn't have been able to reach the current planned totals, target rates by 2035, given especially what happened during the decade of the 2010s. And so we started looking at a number of different growth rates and basically using the same control total and saying that looking at a number of factors, including economic projections, projections by other people looking at population growth, including the U.S. Census Bureau and the Wichita Economic Development and Business Research folks, and decided that this growth rate was much more practical. Yet we are dealing with the control total, and anytime you deal with the control total, you're going to have some friction between communities in terms of looking at their projections and so forth. I spoke with Scott Knable and earlier from Derby, and looking at their numbers for I think he said 36,000 by about 2040. I said that probably looks kind of reasonable. But Wichita, we want to still project a rather strong growth rate, and we're sticking to the same target at this point for 2045. In other words, this update is saying We're looking at the same population targets for Wichita and Sedgwick County of, let's see, it was, some of these columns are hidden here. About 648, I believe, for, oh, that's the WAMPO region. Sedgwick County. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. This is showing 2045. Actually, the target numbers 448,000 for Wichita in 2045 versus 2035. And we still want the growth to be somewhat aggressive because there is a real danger in not planning enough growth in what you're going to need for infrastructure. But the question did arise in some of our advanced plans committees, is the growth rate of the other cities, especially butting up against Wichita, changing such that the ratio of population for Wichita compared to Sedgwick County as a whole, is that really changing? And at this point, I'd say it's a little too early to tell. There are some indications that may be the case. We did modify those rates back in 2012 to show a lower percentage of Wichita to Sedgwick County in total population. But at this point, we're not sure if that is continuing to accelerate. So I would say, going forward, that as we consult with the various jurisdictions and try to iron these numbers out, there will be some communities that will probably go lower than these numbers and others may come up. But that's just part of working within a control total. Any questions?
Answer your question, Dan?
Yes, I was just looking for some general, it sounds like we took the old projections, realized that they were maybe a little too aggressive and kind of just dialed them back a little bit is what I'm understanding.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of these growth rates, they once you apply going that 10 years out, it does lower the growth rates from what we saw in the previous comp plan. But that's just a matter of spreading things over a longer time periods. In other words, we're still using 2012 as sort of the beginning of this growth, but then going forward from 2020 with those numbers and reprojecting everything.
Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Chair, I just want to take this moment to thank Steve Banks. He has been great help. WAMPO staff was working with Steve in developing this methodology. I think Steve is also retiring in December, so we were rushing to get all his knowledge and wealth of, his the reasoning behind the forecasting, the reasoning how he had methodically documented the trends of permits and trends of, the planting and so much information he gathered. We were fortunate to work with Steve in the last couple of months, and thanks to Mary for lending Steve for some time as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think the practical side of this, though, is whatever these forecasts are, when you look across the country, with whatever type of funding that's being looked at as to how aggressive we are, I think that has to play on the national stage as to how aggressive we think we are versus the funding that's going to be distributed. So I don't know it's always wrong to err in being aggressive as long as we have the business support, the growth there to support it.
We do have another comment online from Kristen Zimmerman. She wants to know what is the current thinking on how these, once finalized city level totals will be disaggregated to TAZs.
I don't know that. Say that again, please.
What is the current thinking on how these, once finalized city level totals will be disaggregated to TAZs?
That is true that eventually the goal is to have these forecasts disaggregated at the traffic analysis zones in the model. So not only the cities and jurisdiction and boundaries, but also at a finer level, census tracts level as well. So that's what staff will be working on. But this work continues in the next spring, 2023. This is just a preliminary input, seeking your input, whether we are in the right track and direction, and more importantly, get Steve's knowledge as quickly as possible, and then build from here on to 2023. And we'll keep you posted every couple of months or so how we are progressing on finalizing these forecasts. And your input is valuable, like erring on the aggressive side is good for us in planning purposes. Is a good comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right, next item is the bike ped count report 2012 to 21, actually.
Thank you. So I will give a bit of an intro and then Kaylin will go in more into the work that she has done. So you may remember every month for the past few months, we've talked about doing bike ped counts. Well, this is a report that we have put together with those bike ped counts moving forward. And the results from this year's counts are not included in this report. It will be in a future presentation. So bike ped counts are done to get a picture for the number of bicycle riders and pedestrians using infrastructure. And the counts are used to evaluate new locations for infrastructure and shows the travel mode for the region. It also creates shareable, standardized information. And so now I'll turn it over to Kaylin to talk about her project. Oh, okay. So starting in 2012, we started doing bike ped counts, and we've done 35 site locations through 2020. And then in 2021, we added 3 more, so we're at 38 total. And what Kaylin did is she used the raw numbers and put them through a mathematical formula to create some projections. These are based on the National Bike Ped Documentation Project. And then those projections were converted into annual daily traffic, average annual daily traffic, AADT numbers. We were then able to put them into GIS, and so we have an interactive map, and we have a report that will be online as well. So now it's Kaylin's turn.
Thank you, Ashley. Sorry. I'm Kaylin Travascus. I'm a transportation planning intern with WAMPO. I'm going to be discussing the results of the analysis of those past years that we conducted. We'll repeat this process and Dora is actually working on the 2022 count projections right now. So 2021 had the most complete data of all the count years from 2021 back to 2012. So we chose to focus on that the most. That provides a good standardized snapshot to compare against for the past and for the future. The AADT, or average annual daily trips, in 2021 ranged from 4 all the way up to over 4,000. That's a very wide range. Remember, this is averaged upon averaged, but it's a very wide range. Most sites don't get anywhere near where the highest sites average did. See on the graphic that site was the Keeper of the Plains location, which sees enormous foot traffic. So there's no surprise that's the highest. It's quite a bit larger than the second highest location. And this is the top 5 in this graphic. Some sites had 0, it should be made note of, either because there was no data recorded for one reason or another, or because there was no traffic during the 2-hour time slot where that count location was measured. So that does affect the data. So in looking at the 2021 data comprehensively, the average AADT for all sites was about 531 and the median was 238. This is a map illustrating the volume of traffic at all the sites around the region in 2021. The darker the blue circle gets, the higher the amount of traffic, the higher the traffic density for that location. It's a lot darker in central Wichita, as you can see from the highlighted section on the left. It's a little blown up so you can see better. And right in the middle, there's 2 dots that are very close to each other in the highlighted section. The darkest one is the Keeper of the Plains location. And then this is the most exciting part. This is what our ArcGIS online map looks like. The public can go online. It's on our website. They can get directed to this online. They can click around the map, zoom in and out, interact with each location to see the nature of the corresponding history of the bicycle and pedestrian traffic per location. It shows all the years from 2021 all the way back to 2012, and 2022 will be added into that as well. So it's very informative and I recommend checking it out. You can spend a lot of time on there. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you very much.
Our last item is the advanced construction graphic. Ashley.
Thank you. We have had some jurisdictions who haven't used advanced construction or AC in the past express some interest. So we thought we would share it with everyone because we made a graphic to help convey this information. So advanced construction, or AC, is the arrangement where local government pays for transportation projects costs upfront and then is reimbursed later with WAMPO suballocated or other federal funds. So Nick will go through the graphic and explain how this all works.
Thank you, Ashley. Before anything can start on advanced construction, 3 things have to be the case. First, the project has to be programmed as advanced construction in the WAMPO tip. So going through this body and the TPB for the project, to get the project programmed that way. Because making a project AC would not change the overall amount of the federal funding on the project. That could be a regular tip amendment to make it AC. And second, KDOT would have to give their approval. So that would mostly be a bureaucratic step, making sure all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed with KDOT. And on that note, for most projects, this would be going let by KDOT as opposed to City of Wichita or Sedgwick County, which are able to let their own projects. And then, of course, the most important requirement, the local government has to have the money to cover the costs until they are reimbursed. So in the initial year, the local government pays the contractors and starts construction. And for a period of time, local government has to carry the cost of the project on their books. And then in a later year, the federal government reimburses them. The funds will be obligated by the federal government in the conversion year indicated in the TIP, and then later reimbursed as that gets through the process. And then finally, at the end, local finances are once again balanced after having carried the cost for a period of time. So the pros of doing things this way. First of all, if a project is really expensive, its cost could be spread out over multiple years and therefore get the funding that is made available in those multiple years. And so that if there's a little bit available this year, a little bit available next year, a little bit available the year after that, they could use AC to get all three of those, and then also start the project in the first year. So it's a way to get the project started earlier in that case. And then also there's a benefit not just to the one doing, to the jurisdiction, the individual jurisdiction, it'd also be a favor to WAMPO, frankly, because it would grant us the flexibility to change the year of conversion for AC funds to an earlier or later year, usually to an earlier year, to use up deobligated funds if they are deobligated late in a federal fiscal year and it's not time to allocate them by other means so that they could be used in that fashion. So in which case the jurisdiction would wind up getting their money sooner rather than later. So that would be the other mutually beneficial pro on that part. Of course, that's of course from the jurisdiction standpoint, it is always preferable to get the money sooner rather than later. But sometimes that's not always possible, and so the pros basically it's a way to be able to get things done without that ideal situation. And then, of course, the cons. The obvious con, you have to carry the project cost until the project is converted and reimbursement happens. That does not necessarily mean you would have to have the cash on hand. It could be through bonds or loans, which of course you would have to pay the interest on in the meantime. And the other big caveat, other big con is that it is not guaranteed that in the future conversion year, the funds will be available to obligate for the reimbursement of the funds. In most cases, it winds up that they are. It is planned for it that way. And projections are updated, and if things don't work out, things are moved around to try to make sure it works out. But there is always the possibility that they will not be available, in which case the sponsor could wind up on the hook for the whole amount that even though they had been counting on a reimbursement. So it's a risk. It usually does not transpire that way, but it is a risk. And it is also worth noting that it is not necessarily the case that a project will be done entirely as advanced construction. Often a project will receive some WAMPO sub-allocated funds directly through the regular way that most of the smaller communities will be familiar with, and then also a separate part of the funding through advanced construction. So it is possible to mix and match that way so you wouldn't be going entirely onto the risk side with this kind of thing. And now open it up to questions.
I'm curious, is there a limit to how many years you can pull money from this source?
All right, so thank you. I had a note about that and forgot to say that the preferred practice, by far the preferred practice, is to not to program advanced construction past the period of whatever happens to be the current 4-year TIP period. Otherwise, we'd be promising funds that we had not accounted for past that point. So for WAMPO sub-allocated funds, it would generally be at most 3 years after the construction. So say for example, currently we're in the 23 to 26 TIP. For example, there could be a project in 2023 that has AC reimbursement in 24, 25, 26. I don't believe we have one like that right now, but in theory that it could be done that way. And then we'll have another new TIP in 2 years that will be the 2025 to 2028 tip. So in theory, we could have a 2025 project that gets reimbursed in 25, 26, 27, 28. And now you will see in the tip that there are KDOT AC projects not using WAMPO suballocated funds, but federal funds that they get otherwise through other programs with conversion years well past 2026. But because that's not WAMPO suballocated funds, that it is not as important that those be within the 4-year period. Any other questions or comments?
Anything else? I know just from a small community, that risk is huge. When you're looking at that and trying to look forward to decide how much is going to be sitting out there for you, we do bonds, we do everything, but that's a consideration that we all have to look at. So, anything else? All right, that ends the new business. Thank all the presenters for that. Active Transformation Committee, Alan?
Actually, all I have is just the next meeting, December 7th, in a little over a month at 9:30. It's virtual. Everyone is welcome to come. Love to have you there. We'll be getting with the staff soon to talk about exactly what we're going to be doing on that. So we don't have our agenda for that, but love to have your presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Safety and Health Committee, Jack?
Yes, we do have an agenda. Our meeting is on November 2nd. As you can see, we'll be looking at getting some reports from KDOT on the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, update on the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan that we heard about this morning, and some updates from Wichita PD, safety issues, consumer flow patterns, and which-way uses. So we've got a very full agenda, and it'll be online.
Thank you, Jack. Wichita Transit, Raven?
Good morning. Just wanted to provide some transit ridership numbers that we have for the year so far. I'm happy to say that as of, well, to date, we have passed our ridership for the past couple of years. So we're gearing back up to that pre-COVID number. So we're excited about that. At the end of September, we had 731,446 trips. So we would like to say a good contributing factor of that is our student ridership, which typically accounts for about 40–45% of our ridership there between WSU students and Wichita Public School students. We have had a little over 35,000 veterans that have been riding our transit system, which that number has increased as it's no longer a pilot. It is a full program in partnership with the Veterans Affairs and with the United Way. I guess that's kind of it for now. I'll try to do this maybe quarterly. Does anyone have any questions for now?
Thank you, Ray. All right, that's the end of our agenda topics. Is there anything else anybody like to bring up for discussion? All right, seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.